Hello. I'm here to talk about AppV and UEV and how they can contribute to saving time and money for your organization. So time for an organization is money. Being able to execute a quality job quickly is a sign of efficiency. Customers or clients want that instant gratification. They want an answer. They want a solution today, now. Employees of that company want to be able to do their work. They want their tools available to them. For people, time is precious. You plan for the future, you live in the present, and you can't change the past. Time is so important. How you spend it, whether it's with your family, your pet project, or even just relaxing and taking it easy. We need it, and we want more of it. I'm going to tell you a story about the past, and then I'll show you how we execute in the present. So 5 years ago, Barack Obama was president. The Hunger Games had just came out to theaters, and the Vancouver Canucks were one season removed from the Stanley Cup Finals. And AppV 5 was released. And so our story begins. This is based on a true story. Some changes have been made to protect the identities of those texts and applications within the story. But this is Johnny. Let me tell you a little bit about Johnny. Johnny is a mild-mannered IT tech. He's a family man. He has a wife, kids, and his day started like any other day. He worked 9 to 5, he went home, he ate supper with his family. However, on this day, he was going to do some work in the evening. He was going to miss little Johnny's baseball game. He was going to miss little Miss Johnny's ballet recital. He was putting a lot of stress on his wife to pick up the slack and make this happen for them. So what was keeping Johnny from his family duties? He needed to upgrade criticalhealthcare.exe to version 2012. This application was used by thousands of users. This is a big upgrade. Back then, the application was hosted on physical servers. There was around 20 or so physical servers. Johnny had been told by the project manager that he was able to negotiate a very generous change window, 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., 12 hours. On a Friday night. He got to work. He joined the conference call, he disabled logons to the application, he disconnected all existing sessions, and then he let the database guy know, hey, you can do your part, feel free to upgrade the database, and in the meantime, he could start upgrading the application on the servers. According to the plan, Johnny's job was simple. He just needed to uninstall the application, reboot, and install the new version. Easy. But it's never that easy. This application takes a long time to uninstall and install, anywhere from an hour to 2 hours. And during the middle of the install, it prompts for input. If you're not paying attention, it'll just sit at that screen. You've now wasted time because you're focused on something else, and it's sitting there waiting for you to click a button. And these were physical servers. Back then, physical servers were rebooted only once a month, sometimes once a quarter. And you know why? Because sometimes they don't come back up. So around 6 p.m., he starts the uninstall. He logged on to server 1, uninstall, server 2, uninstall, server 3, uninstall. He gets through them, and then he's waiting. He's waiting for the install prompt to continue. Finally, he starts getting those prompts right around 7:30. He starts accepting those options. And then he's back to waiting. And he's waiting and he's waiting. This time he's waiting for the reboot prompt. And he gets it. He starts going through the servers, initiating reboots. Yes, next, yes, reboot. But he also had some problems. Some uninstalls would fail. Those will just have to wait. You'll have to worry about them later. It's more important to get this application upgraded and move on. So he just makes a note and presses forward. It's now 9 p.m. and he's waiting for those servers to come back. And if you've ever rebooted physical servers, You got your little ping test going and your heart's fluttering as it goes from reply to request timed out, request timed out, request timed out, and you're just sitting there hoping, please come back, reply, please come back, reply. Finally, you see some replies, and sometimes you don't. For his situation, he did not have all of his servers come back up, so he just marked them down, press on. It's now 10, and he's beginning the install. He's clicking through the numerous prompts, he's selecting all the correct options, server 1, server 2, server 3, moving forward. But some of the installs fail. Some have cryptic error messages, so he just notes those servers and again presses on. He's now down to about 50% of his capacity. It's now 11 p.m. and he's got to wait for the install to complete. Everyone else on the conference call has left. He is by himself. He's alone. The project manager said he'll check in later. And so now he's sitting there, servers down, and he's getting tired. It's now midnight, and Johnny is still waiting for the install to complete. I'm getting pretty tired just looking at him. Finally, he gets reboot prompts. The install is complete. Do you want to reboot? He's lost half of his servers. He's getting nervous. Please come back up. Most of them do. He has one more fail. He's down to 50% of his capacity, but that's okay. The way that this was architected, 50% of the servers should be able to take the full user load over the weekend. He notes the down servers and continues on. It's now 1 in the morning. The project manager is checked in. He has some super users who can validate the upgrade. Johnny re-enables the application, tells the project manager about the server situation, that should be okay for the weekend, they'll be able to take the load, everything should be fine, and that they'll work on fixing them on Saturday. The PM tells him, thanks for your hard work, Johnny. Feel free to go to sleep. I'll call you if we have any problems. And so you know what happens next. It's 4 in the morning, and that's about the worst sound you can get woken up to, is your phone ringing when you're on call after a major upgrade. Johnny answers the phone. Hello? And the project manager talks to him. Johnny, the users have found a major showstopper. We have to roll back. Johnny's confused. What? Why wasn't this found in testing? We don't know. We just have to go back. And then Johnny says, but it's not that simple. To resolve this problem, Johnny had to call in additional people to come and help him to try to get this application up in time for the first shift. This is overtime pay, this was emergency rate pay, this is now multiplied by the number of people, multiplied by the number of hours. The downtime for the application, the impact of it was very, very high. You're talking thousands of users unable to use an application. This exceeded the change window, this was expensive. Because of this situation and these scenarios, upgrades were very, very rare. Can it be simple though? Welcome to today. Today, this scenario is insane. Upgrading this application today with AbbVie is no problem. In the past, you could only have one particular version of this application installed on one server. We have different environments that require different versions of this application. This was all installed on physical servers, so if you had one environment that only had 5 users, that server was dedicated to that environment, just for that one version. And then other environments, like production, had 100 users on one server. So it was a very imbalanced load. You had these server resources, large amounts of server resources being used by just 5 people, and then you had the other server resources being used by production for about 100 or so. It's ridiculous. Today with AbbVie, we can take all of those application versions and install them all on the same server. So now instead of 2 servers with a really big imbalance on the load, we now have 2 servers that are sharing that load properly. This is much, much better for resource utilization. And with AbbVie, we can do an install of a new version without having to do an uninstall. And the install can be done extremely quickly, literally just a few dozen seconds. Allow me to demonstrate. So what we have on the left is we have a desktop that I'm going to start an install of healthcare.exe. And then on the right, we have AbbVie, and I've already created 2 packages of two different versions of this application, just minor changes between them, 1.05 to 1.06. And I'm going to use PowerShell to add the application to the server. So this will all be done over the network, because AppV allows us to do that. And you can see on the left, we're still waiting for it to prepare to install. Okay, add the package, copy the path, and then when you add the package, you have to publish it. Okay, and we're starting, and we're going to see how quickly this install goes. We've got the clock up. And you notice the other desktop is still preparing to install. We're still waiting. And so we started about 11:36:00, so we'll see what time it is when it's done. And 31 seconds, we were able to take that application and actually install it on the server. And so now I'm going to go and I'm going to do the other version as well. So this is not possible without this type of technology. You cannot have two versions of this application installed. It will not let you. Okay, and then we'll wait about another 30 seconds or so, and then we should have a second version of this package installed, and in about 2 minutes, we'll have completely done this insane scenario that was not possible before, quickly, fast, and easy. Our team, when we're doing these application rollouts today, it's all done after hours still to minimize impact for our user base, but now everyone puts their hand up. Everyone wants that minimum 3 hours of OT in order to accomplish this. Just this little 5-minute job. In the past, everyone hid. There, and we've got both versions of the application installed. And we'll just show that they're there. And we're still waiting for the other one. That was Tom Petty waiting. All right, so I can let this go. I think it's going to take about 20 more minutes before we get a prompt on the install, but I think we're just going to continue on. No point in waiting. All right. So the next thing I'd like to talk about then is user experience virtualization. What is it? User experience virtualization takes settings from your applications that you specify, and it will roam them for you. What does it do? It's very precise. It's like a surgeon's tool. You surgically specify the exact files and registry entries that you want to capture, and it will capture those entries and then have them follow the application. How it operates is that UEV operates on triggers. So when an application launches, that can be a trigger. It'll inject those settings, and then the application will have those values follow it. It also works on log on, log off, and application terminate to save those settings back as well. And how can it save time and money? So this is another story. We were approached by a doctor who was telling us that an application he was launching on his Citrix server kept going back to default. We had virtualized this software with AppV, and when he showed us, what we found is that, yes, every time he launched it, it would go back to the default values. When we create the AppV package, we work with super users in order to define those defaults that have been captured with it. And what happens is that when you can have an application that's used by a large user base, you can have an application that's used by doctors, x-ray techs, porters or other administrative type staff, then all those defaults don't work for everybody. So when we defined those defaults, they weren't working for him. He told us he was spending 5 minutes every day, every time he launched that application, in order to modify it so that way he could work most efficiently. And so why was it doing that? What we found is that the application, even though it was installed on a terminal server, it was storing all of its values within the local folder. AppV respects the developer's choice to do so, and it will actually save those values in this folder path. It's virtualized, so when you launch it, it's supposed to take those values. But in a Zen app or terminal services environment, there's actually some problems with it. And so Citrix has actually recommended that you exclude that folder. So what was happening is that when the doctor was making those changes, it was being stored here, but then when it wasn't being saved when he logged off. So the next time he launched the application, these values were all blank, nothing was there. So what we found is that UEV is actually the answer to this problem. And we have a lot of applications like this that save to the local folder. We have a lot of applications that do not respect terminal services that say, hey, you might be a roaming user, but if I just write it locally, it seems to work. These virtualization technologies kind of add a little bit of a wrench into this plan, and UEV helps solve that. So that doctor I was telling you about, we were looking at his scenario, and what we found is for 5 minutes every day, so 5 days a week, times 52 weeks, he was using up about 22 hours a year configuring his application, configuring it for his maximum efficiency. This is 22 hours that is not spent diagnosing problems or patients. This is 22 hours of people sitting there waiting for him to get ready so that way his work can be done. And doctors don't work for free. This is 22 hours you're paying for him to be doing this. And that's just one application. If he has 2 applications, that's 44 hours. This is now a week's worth of time. If he has 4 applications, it could be 2 weeks. And that's all a sunk cost. Doctors don't work for free. So by capturing these settings, we no longer needed to continuously reconfigure the application for the users no longer needed to reconfigure the applications for their desires or efficiencies. We continue to work with super users to preset defaults, but now if a user chooses something outside of those defaults, it now roams with them and they get those values, so their preferences stick. With these technologies, we are now taking those inefficiencies and removing them. It's reducing our patient wait times, it's reducing the cost spent on that modification of their workflows, and it's making our organization more efficient. And so I'd like to give a demo of UEV in action. Fire up the virtual machines. And so what I have is I've got 2 workstations that are pre-configured with UEV on them, and they're set to store their settings into a file share. And what I'm going to show is I'm going to show the settings roaming in near real time between the 2 workstations. Okay, so we've got workstation 1 up. We've got this aptly named other workstation. Okay, and what I've done is I've configured UEV with Notepad++, and I've set a template up that we can actually see here. And so how this is configured, with UEV, you can actually configure it to be specific to an application or a range of the version of the application that you want to target. So for me, I'm targeting notepad.exe. You can see it's targeted by the file name, and then specifically by the version. I'm looking at version 7. And it could be anything on version 7 from 1 to version 34. I'm running version 33. So this should pick it up. And these are the values that have been determined that you need to store in order for your settings to roam. So each one of these you can see is an individual file or folder that we've specified. And you can do the same thing with registry keys as well. Okay, so I'm in Notepad++. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to modify the cursor. So we can see the blink rate right now is set to slow. I'm going to set it to strobing. And you can see beside blast off, it is flickering like crazy. So the way that UEV has been configured in this environment is that it's on application launch and terminate. So I'm going to terminate this application, and it's going to take my change and save it. And now I'm going to go to my other workstation, and I'm going to launch Notepad, and we'll see the cursor. It's blinking pretty fast. It took the settings that we had before. So just to prove this out, I'm going to modify them again. I'm going to set the blink rate to be extremely slow. We'll set it to be a block. And now we can see it's not blinking at all. It's just a solid cursor. And I'm going to terminate the application, which will trigger UEV to store those settings back to the file share. And now when I execute, it's going to pull those settings down, and you can see I've got exactly what I just asked for. So these settings are roaming between 2 different workstations. They can roam for the users on a Citrix environment, or a XenApp environment, or an application delivery environment. There's different providers you can use. For my particular example here, I just used an always-on file server, but you can use other providers. I believe Dropbox was one. They used to use offline files. I don't believe they do so anymore. And that is UEV. So we can take a look at Procmon, and we can actually watch UEV in action. Okay, so I've launched it. And if we go to Procmon, we can see agent service is one of the UEV components, and it's detected notepad.notepad++.exe. It reads the template file. That's what the XML is. It's parsing it right there. It's injecting those settings within. And then it launches Notepad++, and Notepad++ is now reading those settings that we specified earlier. So now if we terminate Notepad++, we can see it save the settings. Okay, and so you can see how it operates. What it does is it takes those settings that you've changed. In our particular case, Notepad++'s files. It takes them and it stores them into a zip file, but it just has a custom extension called .pkgx. And you can see all the individual files that it has done so with. And then what it does is it throws that back on the file share. And the file share is something you configure with UEV. This is my file share. This is my UEV store. This is me. This is my settings package. You can now see the individual application itself, Notepad, is listed there. If you've got multiple applications, you'll see multiple ones of these. If you've worked in a Citrix or a XenApp environment, generally the first troubleshooting step that the help desk does is that they just take the user's Citrix profile and they just blow it away. It's taking a hammer to something that may not even be the cause, but if you have a user who's spent time configuring their environment or applications and it's being stored in that profile, you've now lost it all. With this, if you delete that profile, they still maintain their application settings. And then on top of that, if you want to clean up a particular application, you can now visually see which application that they've got settings for and just remove that. If you just delete it, it goes completely back to default. So what I've done is I've taken this package and I've renamed it to a .zip already. So we can look at the contents of it. And we have a binary file that maps the relationship between the files themselves that exist within this. and where they should go. So if I extract this, we'll just take a quick peek. And all these files these are GUIDs. And AppV or UEV does this, and when it captures all the settings that you've specified, it renames them into a GUID format. But in reality, they are still just they're literally just the files that exist with the application. So if I open them, we'll see that they're just XML files that contain all of the settings within it. So this name is just a custom unique name that UEV does. It does a little mapping when it does the injection, and then it does another mapping when it does the saving of the settings. So you can see all the settings that we specified are now saved here. Great. So this went a little bit faster than last time. I think I didn't have any problems with my demo, so that helps. But does anyone have any questions with regards to UEV or AppV?
I've lost track of what does UEV stands for?
User Experience Virtualization. So this is me. I'm on Twitter. I've got a blog where I post about all of my findings and whatnot in the world of IT that I experience, and a lot of that is Citrix and UEV and AppV related, and then my email address as well if you want to get in touch with me.
What's the back end for UEV? Is it just a server? A server that's running where you're actually configuring UEV?
Good question. So there is literally just a file server. That's all you need for UEV, and then you just point it at such. It's a agent that exists on the client side,
Okay.
and that's the only infrastructure component you need. There's different ways to configure it. You can use different providers to move those settings files between wherever the user is, right? So you can use distributed file system if you want to, or DSFR, right, to move it from here to Toronto, say. So if you get on a plane, your settings will have transferred over there, and you can pull it from that server instead. But yeah, it's just a file server. It's super simple. Literally almost no infrastructure.
And what about the application configuration for the users? How is that done?
So there is actually a template generator. That's a good question. I don't have it set up to demo it, but essentially what it is, it's a little program that you run. It's available on the ADK for Windows 10. If you're using a version before Windows 10, then you have to get the MDOT package, and then the UEV template generator is in there. You open that up, you point it to your application, it launches it, you make your changes, and it'll actually do a diff, capture those settings locations where those differences were done, and then it creates that XML file for you. So you can manually go manipulate the XML file if you want, or even just create it manually, but the UEV template generator essentially gives you that template off the top easily. Great. Okay, no more questions? Thanks for your time.